Gotcha. Let's see. All right, everyone. Thank you guys for jumping on and getting started with us today. This is our last week of, um, and I know you're sad that this is our last week of getting started with or rolling along with our love languages Bible study. And so um, you get the opportunity to go back and look. For those of you who are just getting on with us, and maybe you just jumped on last week or you jumped on um, maybe the week before, you get the opportunity to go back and look. If you are a member of our church, then you can go to your Tithely account and look under the church um, membership software piece. I think it says CHMS. If just in general, you can go check out our church, um, get our church app. And if you're on Android or Apple phones, smartphones, just download 6 Mile Zion Baptist Church, Richmond, and information should show up under sermon. So every day we're dropping these Bible studies there. If you're on Facebook, all you gotta do is just go to our church's webpage, and every day after we finish this, the page uploads and you can check this out. So you can go back because this is technically the 5th week of us doing this What is Your Love Language Bible study. And hold on for 1 second. What is Your Love Language Bible study? So we've covered Gary Chapman's book, all 5 of them. We've covered, this will be the 5th week. So we started on our first week. Actually, is this the 6th week? Yes, this is our 6th week doing this Bible study. We started here 6 weeks ago, just kind of talking about our relationships with God and love in general. I'm trying to hold off on getting started. Those of you with me, just don't hang up. We can't get connected to our conference call, people. So I don't want them to miss anything. So the first week, we focused on just love in general. And we looked at eros, philia, storge, agape. And then and then after that, every week we looked at a different love language. So we started off with, and you know what they are: words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time. What else? Acts of service, right? And so we've hit all 5 of them. And then the last one is physical touch. And this is the 5th one in Gary Chapman's book. Now, know that this lesson is not just for everyone. It's not just for intimate couples. It is for everyone. And so hopefully you guys, if you're on Uber Conference, I see you, Keith, Caleb. Shoot me a text real quick, Caleb, if you can hear me. Shoot me a text real quick if you can hear me. Uber conference folk. If you can hear me, Minister Cheatham, anybody. Got my cell phone number. Shoot me a text real quick. For some reason, we're not being heard on Uber conference. But the 5 love languages apply not just to our spouse or significant others, but to everyone. And so I've already told you that the first week was words of affirmation, second week was quality time, third week was receiving gifts, fourth week was acts of service, and then we are now at the physical touch piece. Now, the past 2 weeks, I've tried my best to focus on first the kid part of it and to deal with, the love language as it applies to dealing with children and youth. All right, as it applies with dealing with children and youth. Gary Chapman, in his book, is quoted as saying, I'm sorry, this is from blanklist.com. Physical touch is a non-verbal love language that people use to let others know that they are cherished. And here's the thing. We've been saying this about all of the love languages. And so if words of affirmation is your love language or the love language of somebody you're in relationship with, then that is a way of letting people know they are loved. If quality time is a love language, receiving gifts is a love language, acts of service is a love language, all of these are ways for us to let folk know that we love them. So again, what we've been trying to do throughout the course of this journey is simple. If we as Christians understand that God loves us, we love God, and then it is through that love that we show God in us by paying attention to the importance of how somebody receives love, all right, and how they want love to be received, then it is imperative that you get this. All right. So this really is an important part of the journey. All right. This really is an important part of the journey. The first thing I want to know is, what is my love language? All right. That's the first thing I want to know. And then the second thing I want to know is, what are the love languages of the people who are in relationship with me? All right. So this is why we've been doing all of this. All right. So Chapman says, for some individuals, physical touch is their primary love language. Without it, they feel unloved. With it, their emotional tank is filled and they feel secure in love. All right. For some, physical touch is their primary love language. Now, the one thing that I've shared throughout the course of this piece is this. Irregardless of whether it is somebody's primary love language or not, all of these love languages are needed. All right. So even if the person that you are in relationship with, physical touch is not their thing, touch is important. If words of affirmation is not their love language, then words of affirmation is important. All of these things are important. All right. So as we continue to make this journey along, the one thing that I do want to kind of share is this. When we look at young people, all right, when we look at young people, we start off as a baby. Babies are held, all right, they're held, they're caressed, all right, they're kissed, they develop healthier who are left for long periods of time without physical contact. All right. Gary Chapman says this in a book, and I want to make sure that I read it so that you can catch it. Our children need plenty of touches during their first few years. Hugs and kisses are the most common way of speaking this love language. But there are other ways. All right. A dad can toss his son or daughter around in the air. You can get out on the floor and wrestle with your kids. A mom or dad can pull a kid close to them and hold them close while you're reading them a story. All of these things are important as you journey along, and we start off at a young age, making sure that we kind of sow into our young people. All right, so children thrive. And I'm trying to figure out if you guys are seeing me off to the side or you seeing me straight ahead. So I need to look to the side. All right. So I'm looking two different ways, Facebook and YouTubers, kind of check, trying to speak to both computers at the same time. Children thrive when they receive adequate and appropriate physical touches. Children strive when they receive adequate and appropriate physical touches. All right. One of the things that Chapman says about that is such touching. All right, these touching activities, they happen between parents and children, but not as often as you may think. All right, studies indicate that many parents touch their children only when it is necessary. All right, when they're dressing them or undressing them, putting them in the car, carrying them to bed. It seems that many parents are unaware of how much their children need to be touched. And so, if you're a parent of a younger child right now, grandparent of a younger child, connected to an auntie or uncle, or you've got a godchild, remember that as we are trying to nurture and love and grow and build up our young people, that the touch is an imperative part of it. All right. Gary Chapman also says this, and I'm going to read it. Some parents find it natural to hug or to kiss their children. Others almost try avoiding their children altogether. Often, this limited physical touch occurs when parents grew up at home when their parents weren't touchy feely. All right, so you have to apply yourself here. And so, if you grew up in an environment where you weren't hugged, you weren't touched, nobody put you on their lap and read to you, it is an important part of the growth of our young people. All right, I'm going to read you scripture in a second that kind of talks about that, how important it is for us to be sown into by the touch. All right, sown into by the touch. Gary Chapman again, physical touch is the easiest love language to use unconditionally. Why? Because parents need no special occasion use to make physical contact. All right. You don't need an excuse to just touch. In this age that we're in now, don't just be touching kids without permission from the parent. All right. You got to be in that type of intimate relationship. But many of us have opportunities, parents, grandparents, family members, we have those opportunities part of a child, our love with the touch. All right. And so those of providing this of love. Yeah, I mentioned earlier in the Gospel according to Saint Mark, the 13th through the 16th chapter, we find these verses, and Chapman actually uses this in his books. He speaks to in one of the books the importance of the touch, and Jesus wants us to see that here. Mark the 10th chapter, verses 13 through 16. This is the Message translation. It says the people brought children to Jesus, hoping that he might touch them. The disciples shooed them off, but Jesus was irate and let them know it. Don't push these children away. All right. Don't ever get between them and me. These children are at the very center of life in the kingdom. Mark this, Jesus says. Unless you accept God's kingdom in the simplicity of the child, you'll never, ever get in. Then gathering up the children in his arms, Jesus laid his hands of blessing on them. But the people brought children to Jesus, hoping that he might touch them. People understand within the context of this time how important it was for Jesus to lay his hands. And I'm again telling you that the touch is important. All right. The touch is important. All right. He gathered them up in his arms, and then he laid them, and then he laid his hands on them. All right. So again, of the five senses, touching is not limited to one localized area of the body. I don't have to get into, don't want to get into this whole scientific explanation of tactile receptors in the body. But when you are touched, when you are pressed against, nerves carry impulses to the brain. All right. And so your body then helps you understand through these impulses through your brain, whether or not what you are touching is either hot or cold, whether it's hard or whether it's soft, whether it causes pain or whether it causes pleasure. Now, some parts of the body are more sensitive than others. You know your body. All right. So there's some parts of the body that is more sensitive. Now, one of the things that we read and heard as you develop relationship, as you try to focus more on the love language of your young people, of the significant folk in your life, then you have to understand. Um, and I don't know if you guys can. Okay, yeah. Sorry about that, guys. You on Facebook and YouTube went off for a second. Sorry. Um, that the as you understand what the love language is of the person that you're in love, that you're in relationship with, then you'll understand that if you speak their love language, then you're going to have a better way of connecting. If the love language of the person that you are in is physical touch, then a hug, a touch on the shoulder, walk by on a bump, messing with their hair will go a longer way than you telling somebody that you love them or giving them a present or doing something for them. All right. That physical touch, if you can understand that dynamic, I think will go a long way to help you out. Gary Chapman says when a child is small, it is comparatively easy to fill the emotional tank, but it also becomes empty very fast and must be replenished. All right. And so as a child grows, as a child grows into a teenager, the love tank doesn't become as empty as quickly. But Chapman wants us to understand that the emotional love tank grows and keeping it full will become more difficult. And so you got to continue to fuel these tanks with love, even when they may not give you signs of need. All right. And so you got to continue to kind of focus on these things, because the older your kids get, the less they will probably tell you what they need. Children need meaningful touches every single day. Not just children, All of us. Anybody who is in relationship with somebody who has a love language of physical touch, meaningful touch is important every single day. All right. Now, if you are an adult connected to a child, you got to understand that you've got to make every effort to provide these expressions of love. And let me pause here for a second, because as we begin to conclude this piece, you've got to make every effort to provide expressions of love, period, in relation to the people that you are connected to. So I know it's been a long time since we talked about quality time, several weeks, many weeks since we've talked about words of affirmation, many weeks since we talked about acts of service. But I'm telling you that if you really care about the folk you're connected to, then you've got to spend some time making efforts to provide these expressions of love. All right, it is imperative. It is imperative. When your child begins school, they still have a strong need for physical touch. You just got to determine when and how. All right, you've got to determine when and how. All right, a hug given as they leave the house may be more important. All right, it may be the difference maker between having that type of emotional security and insecurity throughout the day. All right, you got to understand that hug when the child comes back home, or the person that you're in relationship with who has physical touch as a love language. When you enter the house, maybe it is just that simple touch. All right. You don't know what persons are really experiencing when they're out the house. And so you pouring into them when they leave, you pouring into them when they come back is important to that relationship and to filling their love tank. All right. Let me keep on going. Physical touch is important. All right. It is important. All right. Especially when the person that you're in relationship with are sick, or they're feeling hurt physically or emotionally, or they're tired, or when something funny has been said, or something sad has taken place. And this is true not just of the children that we're in relationship with, but guess what? It's true of our kids even as they move into adolescence. And there's a certain level of maturity that happens, and growth is beginning to move. You cannot continue to give the same time. And this is, and I'm certain that these are parents. These are parents and grandparents and those who are connected to other folk who can hear exactly what I'm saying right now. But your way, the dialect, all right, let me say it like that, the dialect of the language, and if the language is physical touch, will change. Listen, all right, as your kids mature, as they grow. You can't continue to give the same type of touches in the same environments and in the same manner that you gave when they were younger. Amen, somebody. All right. If your teenager's primary love language in childhood was physical touch, their love language will not change during the adolescent years, but the dialect of it will change. All right. The teen still needs to be touched, but they're not going to be cool with you hugging all up on them in front of their boys or in front of their girls. All right. And so you're going to have to make sure, and Gary Chapman kind of talks about this, I think, in the teenager book, about the appropriate time for touch. All right. The appropriate time for touch. You gotta make sure that you don't drive your folk away from you trying to do things that are not at the appropriate time for them. And their body language and stuff will let you know. All right. They will let you know. All right. Ecclesiastes 3, 5th chapter. All right. And I'm going to wrap up in a minute, and we'll jump back in tomorrow. But the 3rd chapter of Ecclesiastes pretty much says what I just said. All right. There is a time for warm embrace, and there is a time for keeping your distance. That is scripture. All right, that's in the Bible. So don't be trying to force yourself on your young people. DMX actually quoted this recently, but it works for this time of social distancing in general. Timing is largely determined as it relates to your young people by their mood. All right. But I want you to embrace this as you dealing with people in general. There's a time for a warm embrace, and there's a time for keeping your distance. And I pretty much would say right now, keep your distance. All right. Keep your distance. All right, let me hit a couple more and then I'll be done. The language of physical touch, spoken at the right time, in the right place, and in the right manner, speaks deeply. Let that marinate in your spirit real quick. The language of physical touch, spoken at the right time, in the right place, and in the right manner, speaks deeply. A hug at the right time. A touch at the right time, in the right place, in the right manner, can speak deeply. All right. But again, I'll just repeat what I said earlier. A hug in the presence of a teenager's peers may be embarrassing and motivate the teenager to push away. All right. Now, there are some appropriate times, and I'll read this and share this real quickly. And this is, I think, taken out of Gary Chapman's teen book. Massaging the teenager's shoulder muscles after they come home after a big test can be a way to communicate emotional love. Trying to touch a teenager, though, when the teenager is in an antisocial mood, will almost always annoy them. All right. Chapman talks about in the book, there was a parent that he met at one of the conferences. And listen, something as small as shutting the door. All right. This parent says, I know what type of mood my kid is in by the way they shut the door. If they shut the door soft, close, whatever be the case, then that is their way of letting me know I'm good. But if there's a slam to the door or aggressive shutting of the door, then that usually lets me know that my kid is probably not in the best mood. All right. Good actions taken at the wrong time can backfire sometimes. All right. Good actions taken at the wrong time can often backfire. So make sure that you are understanding, all right, where the persons are that you are in relationship with. Now, I also want to let you know that this misnomer that girls and boys are different as it relates to physical affection. That is a misnomer. A part of the reason that our young men grow up and they're hard and there's no level of sensitivity to them is because we have cheated them of affection. You acting like it's soft to hug your boy or telling your son that real men don't cry. All that's stupid stuff. Okay. Girls and boys need physical affection from both genders. All right. So granddaddy needs to hug the grandson sometimes. Grandmama, hug on them grandbabies. Aunties and uncles, touch these kids. All right. Let them know that it's okay. It's okay for physical touch and physical affection to be displayed. All right. Young boys often receive less affection than young girls. There are many reasons for this, but the most common is that parents feel like physical affection will somehow feminize boys. All right. Let me kind of head toward the close. I know I keep saying that, but I don't want to have too much for us left tomorrow. I'll make this one of my closing ones. The truth is, for many guys, physical touch is a huge part of growing up. All right. And so I've already kind of hit some of that, but, I'll share what Chapman says in his book. He says, left to their own devices, boys can make a contact sport out of anything. All right, it's going to be a game, activity, car ride. As we get older, we're taught to respect other people's personal space and keep our hands to ourselves, period, male and female. All right. So aside from handshakes, high fives, and the occasional side hug, our interpersonal interactions as adult is largely contact free. We touch no one, and no one touches us. But if your love language is physical touch, then you need that touch. And it's important that you share that with the people that are in relationship with you. All right. So I don't know what this chatter is that's going on Zoom, but hopefully you guys are um, you feeling what I'm saying. All right. All children need physical contact throughout their childhood and adolescence, even if physical touch is not their love language. Now, I'm telling you, all of these love languages are important, even if it's not their primary love language. Hear what I'm saying, okay? Your kids need, these kids that we're in relationship with, whatever your relationship is, they need to hear words of affirmation. They need physical touch. All right. They need quality time. It might not be their number one love language, but you best to believe if you want to be a part of producing a healthy young person, then you've got to love them. All right. And so physical touch is important. All right. I'm going to pause here and let me just give you an idea of what we're going to do tomorrow. I'm going to move into dealing with our adults with the adult piece of this tomorrow, and then give some tips. All right. So this last piece that I'm going to share is this: a parent's lack of appropriate physical affection can impact their child's adult relationships. All right. And so that kind of speaks for itself. What you pour into your young person will usually find itself pouring out of them when they are um, when they are maturing physically, mentally, and emotionally. If you cheat the young people in your life out of physical touch, out of words of affirmation, out of quality time, if you don't show them what it means to invest in others as it relates to service or even giving and receiving gifts, you better believe that they are going to show some of those same characteristics when they get older. All right. And so if there is a touchless relationship now, they're going to be doing that same thing when they get older. And do you want them investing in the next generation that they may bring up like that? All right. Everybody, physical, appropriate. And I got to make sure I talk about that tomorrow. Appropriate physical affection impacts children that mature into adults. All right. So we'll come and kind of tighten this up tomorrow. Talk more about the adult part of this, give you some tips. And then on Thursday, we'll do what we normally do, which is focus on what God says about the physical touch piece and some scriptures that may speak into it. All right. Those of you who are with us on Facebook and YouTube, you can go back and check some of this out. You can share it with others. I appreciate you tuning in as you often do. Some of you are becoming regulars. You know, I think my friend Jackie here tunes in all the way from Alabama and does it almost every day. And so I appreciate those of you who are on Facebook, on YouTube. If you need to catch up on where we are, then go to our Facebook page, our church's Facebook page, 6 Mount Zion Baptist Church, or go to our YouTube page that you're on now, SMZBC Worships, and you can find these videos and go and watch some of them to catch up. We're going to sign off now. With those of you who are on Facebook and YouTube, we have some information that and Periscope. I'm sorry. We've got some information that we're going to share that's personal as it relates to our members. So we don't want to let that just hang out there. God bless you guys. Join me tomorrow at noon or at 6:30 tomorrow. Okay. I do it twice on Wednesdays. So you can join me there. All right. Bless you guys. We're going to end that broadcast right now.